With an Air Force pilot shortage that has hit 2000, and commercial airlines in a hiring boom, service leaders are brainstorming ways to address a deepening crisis, eyeing improved financial incentives and a host of administrative actions to improve quality of life for aviators and their families. For the long term, Air Force recognizes it has to widen its pilot training pipeline by 25% to address stiffening competition for pilots nationwide. Navy and Marine Corps also are taking special steps to retain more experienced pilots, but so far, those service branches haven't seen the exodus of mid-career pilots battering the Air Force, particularly its fighter aircraft community. Air Force needed 3,781 active duty fighter pilots by the end of September. It had fewer than 2,700. Its fighter pilot shortage grew by 200 career officers in the past year alone. Within our pilot crisis we have multiple crises, said Brig. Gen. Michael Koscheski, director of the Air Force Aircrew Crisis Task Force, which was established earlier this year to recommend actions to address aircrew shortages across active duty, Guard and Reserve forces. We are concerned that the fighter pilot shortage is the canary in the coal mine, Koscheski said. We're worried about a mobility pilot shortage with the airline hiring a least draw it has. Shortage of instructor pilots is another concern. A majority of the 23,000 pilots Air Force needs for its total force are flying air mobility missions and transports and tankers. These pilots, when not flying, are carrying a disproportionate load of aviation staff assignments and training billets that fighter pilots can't fill given their own acute shortage, Koscheski said. Aviation community managers are used to seeing pilot retention issues rise and fall based on various factors including hires by airlines, pace of military operations, or the relative pull of aviation bonuses. But current pilot shortages for Air Force are acute and expected to grow. A recent Congressional Research Service report said the sharp rise in airline hires reflects industry expansion to meet passenger demand. Fleets of commercial aircraft are expected to double in size over the next 20 years. In the past 3 years, major air carriers have been forced to raise pilot salaries by 20% to fill their cockpits. Meanwhile, a large percentage of airline pilots, possibly 40%, will reach mandatory retirement age of 65 in the next 10 years. Another factor is a 2010 law that toughened hiring standards for airlines and put a premium on the experience of military pilots. By the time they complete their initial 10-year service obligation at a flight school, military pilots typically have the 1,500 flight hours to qualify for an airline transport pilot certificate. This is a unique period because multiple things have happened all about the same time, said Koscheski. This also is a long-term problem, really a national pilot crisis. Airlines, especially regional, are running short of pilots as well. Other factors drive Air Force pilot attrition, however. In exit surveys, pilots are citing cultural issues that affect their quality of life and their service time, including dissatisfaction with excessive duties unrelated to flying and inability to maintain work-life balance, said CRS in its report. The task force has proposed reducing administrative requirements on air crews, reducing requirements for fighter pilots to fill 365-day deployments, reducing off-station exercises, cutting ancillary training, and hiring contractors to handle some administrative duties. Air Force also looks to increase training capacity with new squadrons, add incentives for instructor duty, and is engaging with industry on cooperative solutions to mutual pilot shortages, the CRS said. had a State of the Air Force press briefing last week. Gen. David Goldstein, Air Force Chief of Staff, said its service wants to retain every pilot it can as it builds capacity to produce more. The nation overall, he said, doesn't produce enough aviators to meet demands of military, business and commercial aviation. The military, therefore, intends to work with industry to solve the crisis, he said. The long-term fix, said Kozchesky, is to grow our way out of this. And so, it's going to take a while to get in place what we need to start producing more pilots. That effort is made more difficult by Congress failing routinely to pass stable, predictable defense budgets on time, forcing the services to operate at least through the first 3 months of every fiscal year, under a continuing budget resolution which freezes program spending at previous year levels. Last year, Congress did increase peak aviation incentive pay payable after 14 years of service from $840 a month to $1,000. It also raised the ceiling on pilot retention bonuses from $25,000 a year to $35,000. The services vary actual bonuses based on need, trying to keep enough pilots with experience for every type of platform. Recently, the Air Force has been fallen woefully short. Pilots are offered bonuses after completing their initial 10-year commitments. They take it or they leave active duty. You're sitting at the 11 or 12-year point of your career. If you sign a 5-year or longer bonus, you're essentially committing until retirement at 20 or more years, Kozchesky said. In fiscal 2013, every Air Force pilot community exceeded or came close to meeting the target of a 65% bonus take rate. Bomber pilots had an 81% take rate, rescue pilots 94% and fighter pilots 63%. By fiscal 2017, however, Air Force rescue pilots alone surpassed the target. Only 35% of fighter pilots, 44% of air mobility pilots and 46% of bomber pilots opted to remain on active duty. Part of the problem is Air Force got smaller yet missions in operational tempo haven't eased. Kozchesky said, with fewer aircraft, deployments are more frequent and pilots spend more time away from family. Yet when pilots come home, they find the flying hours they crave cut due to tighter budgets and maintenance challenges. Not until squadrons begin pre-deployment training to restore their readiness are pilots satisfied again with their cockpit time. It's multiple compounding problems that are starting to snowball here, Kozchesky said. Pilots hired by Airline soon have compensation packages that far exceed what the military could offer. Aviators also know that the sooner they accept industry jobs, the sooner they set their seniority number for the airlines. They know that thousands more pilots will be in the pipeline behind them, which is going to directly relate to their quality of life in terms of schedules and aircraft they fly. It's all based on seniority in the airline industry, said Kozchesky. We're emphasizing the value proposition in the Air Force, he said. Money is a factor, but it's not the factor, because people join to do amazing things, work with amazing people and with the world's greatest technology, and live a life that matters. We cornered the market on that, and we're trying to balance that with what's the right amount of financial compensation.